Ago teshike shi Pashu eskibel gonse na la hindi. My name is Pashu. I've been learning from the land for a lot of years, since I was a young person. And I've had a lot of amazing teachers in my life. You know, some that are still here, some that aren't. As a young person, I started learning some of our ancestral ways, you know, Apache people's ways, but other people's ways. And that way, living close to the land. Everywhere I come from an ancestry and a lineage that was walking on the earth close to the land and making their living close to the earth like that. Built myself up as a bowyer, hide tanner, flint napper, professional survival instructor, ancestral skills teacher, and it's my duty to interact with the land and partake with the land in a positive way. And I've gotten the opportunity doing this stuff long enough now to get to see my impact in a lot of places, you know, getting to see the impact of tending and taking care of the place and see the plants and the animals react in a positive way to that.
And so few people can even fathom in the modern world making fire from natural materials. Even fewer can imagine going out into the wilderness with no modern implements, no knife, going out and creating cutting tools and gathering the natural materials right from an environment to actually make a fire from scratch. No paracord, no knife, just you, the rocks, and the plants.
Yeah.
Which is really wild. I'm really looking forward to it.
This is the hardware store. You know, we're in the hardware store right now. Sometimes the hardware store and the grocery store kind of interweave, you know. As far as like sharp cutting tools go, a lot of times I can use visual indicator, especially, I mean, I've been here 20 years. I mean, I know pretty much on site what's going to do. But say you're somewhere where you don't have that amount of time, there's other indicators, you know. One of them is sound, you know, and the rocks tend to make sounds kind of showing their qualities, you know. And these are not necessarily sharp-edged tool stones. These can be used for other things, but the sound has a bit of a dullness to it. And so a really dense and especially kind of glassy stone is going to have a more high-pitched sound to it. This is a chunk of basalt. This stuff is tough, but it makes a great tool that holds its edge, you know. There it is. Yeah, you can hear that. You got to be a special type of individual to just go out on the land by yourself and not take a knife. But, you know, a lot of people do carry knives. I mean, I have one on me right now, and the reality is these things are not good for carving a bone and antler and things like that. You dull them out really quick, butchering and skinning and stuff dulls a knife out really quick. If you're just biffing that into the sand trying to butcher your trout and stuff, it in some ways you're kind of diminishing its performance for better tasks. And so being able to supplement this with sharp edges, especially if you're just trying to be out for a long time or have that real immersive connection, you know, they supplement, and they don't work better, but they really complement as well, and they work so well for some tasks. Did I tell you this stuff was hard? There we go. So we opened it up. Still short, but a really, actually very rounded cutting edge. And I'm going to get a collection of these. You get different benefits from this. As an unworked flake, this has benefits, especially as a scraping tool. Usually it's easier once you get a little opening in there. And so that's pretty nice. We're getting into some nice tool there. It's big enough to hold. It's got cutting edges on both sides. And like I said, this basalt is great material for woodworking. But that edge is actually sharp enough. I mean, you got to fish with that. You process small game with that, no problem. So there was tool 1, tool 2. I feel confident that I could definitely make a trap and probably a fire kit with just those 2 things. So I think that would be a fun thing to put to test. We'll see if my confidence is capability or cockiness. It would be foolish to not hold on to this for making a fire kit. The cottonwood's got good bark too. See the fibery bark? At this point in the game, this bark is tinder. This has a really nice straight piece right there that's about the diameter that I like for a bow drill spindle. Those are both nice. It's good and dry. I put it on my lip and I can sometimes detect moisture a little easier with thinner parts of my skin, but that is bone dry. So we got a board, we've got a spindle. So I'm going to use my chopper because I could carve on this, but that's going to take a while. This is so, you wouldn't want to do this with a metal tool. You wouldn't want to be using a piece of stone for a chopping block, because then you biff your metal tool into it and you got problems. It gets a little beaver chewed kind of look to it. Notice how much of braiding I'm actually doing with a lot of stuff. When you start moving into the world with rocks, you start really recognizing abrasion as a reduction method. Now that's pretty straight. It gets a little bend right here, so I'm going to carve my top point in here. This is my bottom point. So that's a rough spindle. Yeah, it's got the straightness it needs. It's got its points. It's got everything it needs. It's a little short, but we got our straightest section out of there possible. And then we got our board and our spindle. We got our bow, we got our handhold that we need, and our cord. Sometimes the cord can be very challenging, but we've got options here. We're getting a kit together. We got stuff. Now we've got stuff, we've got options, we've got resources. So we need a handhold. We got a whole lot of down pine here. I'd really like to find a rotted out pine tree with just the burl. Those burls are so saturated in pitch and sap. So that could work. And you also, you know, pine's a soft wood, but you get this junction where grain goes different directions and swirls, and it gets really dense there. A pine burl is actually some dense stuff. We also need to fill out our tinder bundle a bit, because we have a little bit of tinder, but it's not really that awesome. We got a lot of dry grass around. Dry grass in the summer months works fine. My thing with grass and with pine needles off the ground is that when you get into any of the damper parts of the year, or if you're in a really damp place, anything close to the ground is going to be damp. The higher, the drier always. So your firewoods always, I always tell people, I don't care how tall you are, reach up this high, that's going to be the best firewood for you, and the best tinder for you is the stuff that's like that high. There's some black locust logs right there. The locust is another one that's got, when it's fresh, has a nice, tough, fibrous inner bark, which works great for cordage when it's fresh, but in this state, it'll add to the tinder bundle. I'm not finding the big rotten pine log that's going to yield me a nice, just straight pine burl by itself. Well, except for that one. More what I'm talking about. I feel the weight on that thing. Oh wow. Yeah. Pine's a softwood, except at those branch junctions. Wow, and you can see it right in there. That's sapwood. Yeah, that's that gassy diesel sapwood right there. That's the good stuff, you know. And so yeah, once you have an open flame, that can really help you make fires. You know, I mean, everybody needs to know that. If you live in evergreen pine area, you need to know about pitchwood, you know, because that's how you make a fire in wet weather. But it needs open flame. You can't just take a coal from a fire kit and get that sapwood to light off of it, because it's very flammable if it gets the amount of heat that it needs. You know, it's just a cinder doesn't really do it. But that's nice and dense, and that's our handhold right there. So we're all set. Let's go back to where our tools are. We're gonna set up everything. Grab a little bit more tinder to fill things out as we go. And we got this punky wood here. That punky wood is a nice little additive to a tinder bundle. It just helps the coal get bigger, and so we'll crush that up and add it to it. You can use pine needles a bit for tinder. There's some techniques. Sometimes you're up in monotonous pine land, and that comes with its virtues for certain resources, but tinder is not one of them. So to use this as just tinder, it's just far too coarse. But when you have some other tinder available, it can work out. So we got our board, our spindle, got our tools here, got our handhold. And we got some dry grass to fill out our tinder bundle. Grass is a similar story where it's a little coarse, but it's not as coarse as pine needles. And it's also got the leaves and stuff going on, so there's just a little bit more of an ability to just get that fineness that you want out of a tinder bundle. And the hotter and drier it is, the more minimal your tinder bundle can be. You know, you get damp and cold. I like to have a big tinder bundle because you want big flame when it's damp out. And then I'll take our finest stuff and I'll put it in the center of the nest. Kind of like you're making a bird nest, you know. You imagine that you're trying to put a soft-bodied little critter in there. And then I'll take my punky wood. Get it real fine. And this stuff, it's not like it flames up, but what it does is it's like a coal extender, and it'll kind of help build your coal when you drop your coal into it. So we'll just pile all that in there and make a little nesty like that. So we got to put a little divot in there. We got to prep a little divot in there, and then we got we got some willow here. We'll peel some bark to make a cord for that. Yeah, we got a little divot there. It needs to be adequate to hold. Yeah, so there it is. You know, when you can kind of stick the end of your spindle in without easily just popping it out, that'll hold on. Let's see. As long as it's not just slipping off of there, yeah. And then we'll burn that in a little bit. Now the bows can be relatively simple. The cord for bow drill can be quite a nuisance. So this willow bark this time of year can be really great. You catch the right season where it's at its strongest. We don't need to reverse wrap it or do anything. We just kind of peel it off and give it maybe a little twist even, or sometimes not, and just use it kind of like a ribbon. But as far as tensile strength, it's got a good amount. It really doesn't like to be tied into knots, because the knot will often, when a knot really kinks and bends on itself and pulls tight, that's the weak point. And so I like to use a clove hitch is actually my preference. So about an arm length bow will do you well. I'm gonna put a little bit of a notch in here because this is sopping wet. This is really slick. This is gonna be a little bit of a challenge just because it's actually slippery with moisture right now. I'm just giving this a notch just so the cord can kind of bite into there. So about, you know, armpit to wrist or so. You know, if the bow is short, it's very transportable, but you sacrifice the amount of rotation and kind of the mechanical advantage you have with it. If it's super long, you can't actually use a length longer than your stroke anyway, so there's really no advantage to having it extra long. And you can see compared to the dry willow, I mean, willow is not a hard wood, but you can see how that soft green willow just cuts so easily with the stone. It's pretty cool. So we'll start off with just a single ribbon here, and we'll see how that goes. Like I said, we got a couple of cords here. I'm actually going to keep that out of the sun so it stays limber. We got a few more chances here for your clove hitch. And that one works really nice for the rootlets too. Anything that's like kind of brittle that if you try and tie a square knot with it, it just breaks, you know. Oh, you see, and our willows are already starting to fray. Yeah, all right. Okay, so what is this? Is this our third cord now? I think it's our third. And this is, you know, this is just this part of it. If I break through all of this willow, we'll try and find a pine root. So the notch is facing towards me because it's kind of an effort to protect, which in this weather, the main thing I'd be protecting it for is like gusts of wind. And you see I'm angling the bow a bit so that the cord material doesn't abrade on itself as badly. And the notch is pretty much full of black dust, well, dark brown dust, and this damn little thread just knocked my dust pile down. Oh. Oh. Yeah, so it's starting to happen.
So close.
Yeah, it was starting to happen. But cord broke. But from what I'm seeing, we're right there. It's just our cord. The Scotch broom here has kind of got a similar bark story too. But what ends up happening is it's so branchy that getting a clean piece of bark off can be kind of challenging sometimes. So the outer bark on the Scotch broom is a little thinner. So that's kind of a benefit.
So that's a pretty beefy cord, but that's actually kind of what you need. So I tapered out that end just to make the knot easier to tie. Oh, I was about to use the steel just out of pure muscle memory, guys. I wasn't trying to cheat. I probably shouldn't have had it on my belt today, but I got this salami in my bag. And the truth is I love these tools, but this would suck for cutting salami. It's just a bottom line. Like, I guess that would have been kind of cool to get on camera, as me trying to cut a salami with that thing and then giving up and just eating this salami log like it was a Slim Jim. But that just seems kind of dumb and ridiculous and kind of gross. So I had the knife. I forgot that I wasn't using it for a minute. I was just enjoying talking with you guys. But generally, if you're really trying to immerse with stone tools, it's best to not have those things on, because then you'll use them and you'll be like, oh, nobody's looking. Just trimming off all those little tendrils sticking out. They're just going to be a bit of an issue. So this is going to be the front, and that'll just loop over the notch, and then this will get tied in the back. And yeah, for all the avoiding doing that I did, that didn't really take very long. You know, it's just kind of, especially, you know what you're trying to get. You're not necessarily after tensile strength, we're just after a little bit of abrasion resistance. So I've got my old bow here. And the diameter of this string is almost the size of the bow, so I'm really just going to kind of wrap it around. I'm not even going to do a knot. See how I'm pushing that and kind of pre-bending the bow? I'm kind of like spring-loading it.
That's a really rad quality of the green bow.
Yeah, or even if you're not going green, just like limber, you know? And you like I said, you don't lean on that advantageousness of the material as much, or even at all, if you use para-chord. You know, because the para-chord will stretch. You can use the most rigid log when you do para-chord, or even a lot of natural materials. I'm just keeping an eye as I'm going. I'm really tilting the bow so that I'm not rubbing the material on each other. That was something I was trying to do before, but now I've got this nice cord, it's a little bit easier on me. I'm also able to use more length of the cord, which is further distributing the stress over a bigger area. Oh. And that was a handhold failure this time. All the stuff's coming up now. So there's a pile, and the smoke has been coming out of the pile. It's looking like after some work, we got a little baby coal there. I was taught to have the tinder bundle underneath. I've met people complain about, oh, it gets in the way, this and that. I put the tinder bundle underneath the notch. It drops the coal right into the tinder bundle. I'm not a fan of, you know, the Bushmen do it in Africa. They'll like pull their knife out and make the coal on their blade. I'm not a fan. I'm not a fan of dropping the coal
onto something and transferring it to the tinder bundle, okay? You get high wind, you get rain, wet conditions, you have issues there. You've got this fragilest little baby coal, and now you're moving him around. You know, I drop him right into that little bundle, right into that little nest. I mean, if we got amazing weather for fire making, this is easy. But, you know, if you've got the rain going on, you can shelter this guy like this. You know, you can protect this. You can protect from wind, you know. You need to be able to protect this guy and also not rush him. He's there. He's got a few minutes of life. He's got a big pile of dust. He's got baby food. I'm not going to rush this guy. I'm going to lift my board away. I'm not going to pick it up and drop him. And I'm going to dump all the rest of that dust that I got on there. That's just coal extender. Extra baby food. Little baby grandfather. And so there's nowhere for the coal to go. I don't have to transfer him. I just pick up my bundle very gently. I kind of taco it up like that. And I like to have this at least at eye level because I don't want to get smoke in my eyes. And you turn them upside down. So there we go. Pine burl, cottonwood board and spindle, willow bow, scotch broom. Here's our pile of failed willow cords, little extra scotch broom bark.
Dude, that was a heroic journey.
And here's the two tools we used to get this fire. Now this, you know, we stack this up with little twigs and stuff like that, or add it to a structure. But it's a bit of a warm day. We're not really needing a warming fire.